Hi there. Welcome to Bible Slash Chat. Kevin, hello.
John, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Great.
How's the Dutch church plant going?
Oh my goodness. DBC.
Just to make it uncomfortable. Just
We
kidding.
don't even have a name yet.
When you go, are you going to call it Kevin Van Tongeren
Oh my.
Bible Church, KVTBC?
Gosh.
Are you going to call yourself King Kevin?
Well, that actually leads into our question for
Oh,
today.
look at that segue. Yeah.
Well, the question, as I understand it, is are we pro-democracy?
Yeah.
So what is the best form of government, and do we like America?
Yeah, right. Correct. Yes, we love America. The question actually arose because we were talking about Jewish people and then supporting the nation of Israel in the current conflict in the Middle East, and why we support Israel. And one of the reasons why we support Israel is because it's the last or the only like genuine democracy in the region. So we're like very pro democracy. Why is the question?
Yeah.
And the question actually is like, it's like tricky because, as you said when we first discussed this question, we're actually monarchists. What did you mean when you said that?
Yeah, so God made man to rule, right? Genesis 1, the way God has made man is to be, for the world to be under the kingship of Christ, ultimately. It was made with Adam being told to rule and subdue. Kingly language is used for David, and 2 Samuel 8, all sorts of stuff. So God established a monarchy. He did not establish a democracy, right? When he had his nation. And so we see that. And that's why we'd be ultimately monarchists. We profess that Jesus is Lord. Like
Jesus is king.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
we're not Americans like to the bone, in that sense. So
first and foremost, we're not Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Democrats.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. Okay.
So that's what we mean with monarchists is that, the ultimate form of government is what God says it is, which is monarchy.
Yeah. Okay. So that's super helpful, actually. And that kingship is vested in Christ. He distributes that to people.
Right.
However, we don't believe in like divine rule, like the divine right to rule over nations, like the way that Louis XIV in France did. Like the Sun King. I have the divine right of monarchy, whatever. So why not? Like, why do we move away from centralized autonomous power in kingship in an earthly monarchy?
Yeah.
Since we have Jesus who is the king.
Right.
What's keeping us from that?
Yeah, I think our own sinful nature, like we have Christ as king. We have, if we just look at the biblical storyline, you have Adam as a king, effectively.
Yeah.
And then Adam falls, and then God is rebuilding from like out to in, basically, with externals, a kingdom, a people, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we have initially a dynasty of Saul, right? That goes to David, that goes to David's house. David's house divides. You have all sorts of kings. You have that office there, but no one is capable of bearing that crown properly until you get to Jesus, and Jesus is rejected and then goes away for a time to receive a kingdom, Luke 19, and then come back and establish that kingdom. But in the meantime, we are still fallen people, and to centralize power on a king, though that is the best form. It's not illegitimate for a country to have a king.
Right.
When we look at being pro-democracy, the benefit of that is that it decentralizes power. It decentralizes command.
Yeah.
If Tolkien taught us anything, not one person should have that ultimate rule, fallen man. And so we would say it's best for the temporary circumstances of men to have decentralized power in that. So
that's super helpful. I think so sin is actually the thing. So sin makes men evil, and the more power you vest into an evil person, the more dangerous they become. And no one, even a true believer, is free of their own foibles and faults and struggles. And so any system that autonomizes a single guy gets you into a lot of trouble. And that kind of and so that like idea the whole idea of like the structure of society, we're trying to push power down into the people, as opposed to centralize it into a single guy up.
Right. Yeah. And so America works as long as there's common grace and Christians.
Yeah.
But
yeah, totally.
But I was listening to a book recently, and they said the founders never envisioned a totally secular majority either.
Right.
It's where it's like, because if you just have the people, quote unquote, what you have, at least in early America, is like a nominally Christian base.
Yeah.
But then, the first public schools debate was like which version of the Bible to read.
Yeah.
So it's like we're talking at least a culturally Christian base of people. But then when you start to get a secular majority, democracy then votes itself into extinction.
Totally.
So it's just it's a temporary structure designed to be unstable because you're not supposed to centralize.
Yeah.
At least in America. And so that's why you have checks and balances, multiple branches of government, all these kinds of things. It's a temporary stay on the powers of evil to prevent them from running absolutely roughshod over everybody.
Yeah.
Especially as government gets stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
So it's helpful, but it's not the solution.
Yeah.
So if the whole world goes democratic, that does little for the souls of anybody.
Yeah, no one's actually. I mean, people might be helped materially by that because on average, most run of the mill people aren't looking to like expand imperialism or like conquer their neighbor.
Well, if you look at the 2 and 3 year olds,
I mean, yes, yes, I too have children. Yeah, so that's that concept, that idea of like, hey, we're pushing power down into like the lower levels, and we're providing checks and balances for the sake of really
survival
and in a sense in reaction to the status of the world until Jesus comes back,
right?
Who is an omnipotent and benevolent king who will then rule with authority, but that authority will be perfect.
And I think when we see even our fallen government failing, it's designed to help us ache for the Isaiah 11 kingship of Christ, where it's like he will not judge by what his eyes see or pass judgment by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he will judge the poor. It's all centralized on his shoulders, like Isaiah 9, right? Like he bears the government on his shoulders. It's totally like nobody's shoulders can bear that, but this is
even
helpful...
Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like you just
King Trump. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, you see that it's just so obvious, but it's helpful. I think we should be very thankful for our democratic structure of government. I mean, the founders were geniuses.
Oh yeah.
But just to be clear, it's not the solution. We're not here to, extend democracy to the ends of the sea, right? Like we're supposed to extend the knowledge of the Lord.
Totally.
So this is a vehicle for that. Of course, it buys us some time. But
at the end of the day, that isn't our final aim.
No.
Yeah, there's no democracy in heaven.
When Christ comes, he's not going to be handing out ballots.
Whew. That's a crazy thought, isn't it? That's actually like
pretty fantastic.
like moderately disturbing.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I hope that's helpful for you on why we're pro-democracy and why we're pro-democracy now and in the future we're not. So if you have any questions on this or any other topic, you can always email us at info@faithbibleoc.org. Thanks so much.